A federal sick leave law was signed by the president last week. The law is designed to help both employers and employees in this time of pandemic. For more on what the law covers and what it changes, we spoke to Jonathan Frutkin, founder and principal of Radix Law. And Jonathan, thank you so much for joining us. We appreciate your time. This new federal law on sick leave, what are we talking about here? How does this affect employers and especially employees?
Well, we know almost for sure how it's going to affect employees generally. We still have a lot of questions about how it's going to affect the employers. But from an employee perspective, they're going to have up to 2 weeks of paid federal leave. If they get sick or they're quarantined, they're going to have up to 12 weeks of paid leave, 2/3 of their pay, up to certain limits for 12 weeks if they need to stay at home to take care of the kids who aren't in school, or they basically need to take time off because somebody else is sick. And so this is going to help employees a great deal. It all starts April 3rd.
Okay, what about workers that are forced to stay home and take care of kids? Do those numbers apply, or is there a different formula?
So the way it works for people who have to stay home, not because they're sick, but because their kids are home or another reason, they get up to 12 weeks of pay, 2/3 of their regular amount of pay, up to $200 a day. And the employees need to know they're going to get that from their employer. They're not getting it directly from the federal government. There's not forms to fill out. There's nothing like that. You need to go through your employer.
Interesting. Now, the size of the company, does that impact this new federal law?
This particular federal law deals with companies that have less than 500 employees. It's still a little bit unclear what's going to happen with the small employers, less than 50. But if you have between 50 and 500, this covers you, the employee. For the smaller companies, we're going to see by April 3rd what the Department of Labor says, but it looks like you will likely also be covered by the law.
All right, for those who are self-employed, for contractors, for these sorts of folks, how does it work?
So the good news is this, as opposed to the Arizona paid sick leave law, does apply to contractors, freelancers, giggers. And basically what they're going to do is they're going to take your last several months of earnings and they're going to average them. And you are going to be able to get this money as well. Now, it is likely that you are going to have to get it directly from the federal government by way of either a tax credit or an accelerated tax credit, which will come to you a lot quicker. But there is some benefits, at least in this law, for people who are either self-employed or giggers or contractors, and that really is helpful to just thousands and thousands of people in Arizona.
Okay, so this kind of sounds like it might be, it kind of combines sick leave with family leave, at least the law on the federal level. Am I on the right track there?
You're on the right track in the sense that the federal law is trying to basically protect people's jobs, and the way they're doing it is by helping foot the bill for the employers who otherwise couldn't do it. The Family Medical Leave Act only applies to like larger employers, generally more than 50, and that doesn't require a paid leave. And right now, that's what's really important, is the fact that the money keeps flowing in. And so the combination of the state law, the federal law, and then the federal stimulus, all in combination, the hope is that people will be able to pay their rent, buy food, pay for medicine, all those things.
And we should mention again, as far as the sick leave, we're talking about $511, is capped to $511 per week. Is that true for up to 2 weeks?
$511 per day.
Per day.
And so what we're really talking about is covering almost every employee, because otherwise you're talking about people who make well over $100,000 a year who will see a little bit of a pay decrease per day. And so for most people, that benefit will actually cap out at 10 times 511. And that is going to be very helpful for people who are sick to know that they're going to get 100% of their pay.
How does this now work with the Arizona law, which was passed, I believe, before the COVID-19 pandemic? How do these mesh? How do these work?
So the Arizona law was passed a couple years ago, 3 years ago, in fact. And the Arizona law has provided for employees to have somewhere between 24 and 40 hours a year of paid sick leave. That is effective right now. The federal law is effective April 3rd. So that's going to help bridge the gap for a lot of employees. Employers, on the other hand, have a problem because employers need to foot the bill for the Arizona sick leave as opposed to the federal government. And so we've had a number of calls from small businesses and how are they going to pay this? And the hope is that the new federal stimulus will provide some sort of loans or other aid to businesses to pay that bill. But from an employee perspective, you have access to both starting April 3rd. Right now, at least you could use the Arizona paid sick leave.
Indeed. And as far as financial protection, if a business closes, is forced to close because of the coronavirus pandemic, how does that mix in?
Well, the answer is if the business is closed, as of now, the way that works is that you will have access to certain benefits and not others. Now, how that's going to work is a little bit unclear, but it looks like the stimulus is going to provide for there to be kind of enhanced unemployment. And that enhanced unemployment will basically allow you to continue with your health insurance benefits and at the same time receive more than the normal unemployment benefits. So people will be able to bridge that gap. You know, businesses that are closed aren't paying their employees, their ex-employees, they're closed for the most part. And so that's one of the main reasons why this third leg, as it were, the federal stimulus needs to come in and help close that gap for the people who are temporarily unemployed.
All right. So last point here, a lot of moving parts, a lot of numbers, a lot of figures to figure out. The bottom line for those, and a lot of folks have lost their jobs or are looking at pending unemployment or underemployment. What do people need to know?
First step, if you are still employed, talk to your employer. Now, they might not know everything yet, but they are ultimately the ones who are going to be able to take advantage of some of these programs and help you out. If you are unemployed, get your unemployment application in as soon as possible. By getting in that system, you're going to have the ability to find out what's going on with the unemployment system, because beyond the stimulus checks that we're expecting to go to each person, we're expecting a lot of help for the unemployment process. And so those are your first two steps. Ultimately, there's going to be more and more information that comes out. Obviously, the news programs like this are helpful, but you need to kind of stay up to date. First step, employer. Second step, if you don't have a job, check with unemployment.
All right, Jonathan Frutkin, Radix Law, I should say. Great information. Good to have you here. Thanks for joining us.
No, thank you so much.
And later